I'm Jen Pinkerton, and today I want to share about attachment wounds and returning to the person you were born to be. I'm going to talk about some tough love with you. We've been robbed, and it's an inside job. Our true selves get stolen, somewhat like being taken like a thief in the night when we're all just too busy protecting ourselves from whatever pain or trauma has harmed us. The truth is that we are born exactly who we're meant to be. We can all want to change who we are. We can all not like the person we become. Many of us chase different self help modalities, or we look to model our lives after others in search of that feeling of being whole and being this improved version of us. However, what if the challenge is to instead of improving ourselves, we return to ourselves? Our most natural, real self is that desired destination. That's when we're authentic. So we're not affected by the societal pressures or all of our attachment wounds and trauma responses. We're not pathological. We're not problems to be fixed. And we're not broken people. Although I know it's so easy to think about that. We may feel lost, we may feel stuck, but how do we comfort ourselves? Does your self care look like numbing instead of nurturing? And do you even know the difference? Are you chasing something that you can't ever reach? What if we poured that type of energy into establishing an understanding of our true selves? All of these questions relate to attachment and wounds and trauma and all those beginning aspects of our life that form these primary love lessons. Our responses to the pain we experience caused us to deviate from our actual true path. Instead, we become this reactive version of ourselves. We're often just in survival mode, and most of us have absolutely no idea that we're just existing, not living our true life. We might be full of shame and negativity. We might not realize it's all a reaction to our world, the world that we created out of necessity, one where we began to adapt to protect ourselves, one that we took the situation we were in and developed these unique and specialized coping skills to just survive, to just live the best we could. But the thing is, when we're a child, that's easy to do. But as an adult, it doesn't serve us anymore. We might be resilient, but we aren't really living. But you can shift and grow into a different place of self awareness. This is where we can come into the opportunity to do inner child work, to go back and reparent ourselves, to look at the world a little differently, to recognize those are my unmet needs. This is what I didn't have growing up, and this is what I needed. Instead of looking for that primary caregiver or parent to fulfill that, we can fulfill it now as an adult. The thing is, most parents did the absolute very best that they could with what they have. Because this multi generational trauma thing, man, it is real. Your parents endured something and they projected it down to you, and the cycle continues. But that's where this robbery, this inside job idea comes from, because we have a chance to stop that, to stop the cycle, to change the way we respond or react. We cope to everything in our world, and when we think about being stuck in a relationship, or not doing well in a job, or not handling triggers, or having issues with friends, or being that drama person, or even being attracted to drama, all those things can relate back to a definite path of what we experienced and how we handled it, how we adapted. By doing some of this work, it's like we have an opportunity to return to this perfection that we already were, that we're born to be. I challenge you to think of anything differently other than the fact that we're born to love and be loved, and to share everything that we have that's good and enjoy with the world. We can recover who we're meant to be, but that's your healing journey. It's when we might have to dig a little deep and be vulnerable, which is what most people are 100% afraid of doing. But that's not something that's rewarded much in the world today. It can be challenging thought to be a little bit raw and exposed. But what if you decided to be committed to your own authenticity in a way more than you're committed to being concerned of what someone thinks of you? Because does the opinion of someone else really matter? Or does it matter more to get down to those root causes that are holding you back, to deal with the stuff that hurts, and then have a little bit of discomfort now to alleviate all that discomfort later? Most people do suffer from some form of emotional trauma. It is actually a rewiring of your brain that you can carry into your adult life. But the beauty is we're given this unique gift that we have neuroplasticity in our brains. We can create new neural pathways to connect, to look at different perspectives, to have a different attitude, and to change our entire vision of the world. So if you're having these feelings, or you have anxiety, or you have a sense of stress and depression, or just feeling stuck with very low self-worth, or maybe you don't even realize that's what it's all about, and you just demonstrate and present with anger and irritability. Maybe you lash out. Maybe your relationship is full with a sense of rage. Maybe you lose it and you get triggered at work. Or when anything doesn't go in your way in life, maybe you're just hindered emotionally or even sexually. These are all connected because these early attachment experiences are basically the model for how we're going to view ourselves as an adult. It's basically setting the tone for our ability to be real. And so, if we're not doing that, then we may manifest in totally different ways with this high level of reactivity. Our limitations in life are disorders because if we were taught that love dealt with chaos or unmet needs, or if we had these difficult circumstances that illustrated an inconsistent pattern of emotional attunement, or maybe intrusiveness, or the effects of mental illness in the family, maybe abuse or addiction or abandonment, all of that shapes this emotional balance. And we're just going to repeat that cycle over and over again. We repeat what we do not heal. And therein lies the opportunity to feel, to heal. Some of us think this maybe it's just your inheritance in life. My mom did this, my dad did this, and this is what I know is just going to be who I am. Or this is how I'm going to leave, so take it or leave it because I'm not changing. But that inheritance doesn't have to be accepted. This is a cycle that can be broken, and it is empowering. And I mean, that is where that transformation lies. To understand the why and create an entirely new narrative of self-actualization. And the story in our head changes. The way we look at the world changes. And what we want out of life and what we're able to get out of life changes. This also ties in with being enough because everyone is enough. You are born enough. But very few people realize that. And that sense of being enough, that sense of worthiness could be so profound. And how it affects us in life, that sense of worthiness can cause us to look at a situation and immediately have a go-to response that's about, they don't want me, they don't value me, or it leads to rejection or abandonment. When sometimes, at face value, that has nothing to do with the issue at hand. It's about you. And that's when you can start connecting those dots. When you can recognize in different scenarios that you present and you talk about and you say, wow, that was me. I was doing that. I'm the common denominator here. So when you can work on some of those things, you can completely shift the way you respond and how you react. I often say it is about responding instead of reacting. And what I mean is that instead of being triggered by this instant response system, you can actually give pause. It's power in the pause. And you can look at it in a different way. And you won't have that immediate fire lit under you that's basically a complete flooding of emotions and rushing back to all those traumatic feelings that you've never dealt with. So your fighting style and your sense of conflict can completely change the way you feel about conflict. It can change that instead of wanting to lean into it or run from it, instead of activating your fight or flight or freeze modes that you've done based on this attachment style that you've had to adapt to, instead you're going to look at things differently. You're actually going to have a chance to stop and recognize for things for what they are. I know it sounds a little bit impossible, and you can't even imagine that, but I see it happen every day. And that's where the concept of inner child work shows just how important it is and how necessary it is. If I could have one wish, what everybody would do in life, that would be to challenge that and to understand that and figure out for themselves. And frankly, that's one of the things that I'm here on a mission to do. So as we're talking about that inner child work, I'm sure the first thing that's on your mind is, how the hell do I do that? But so much of this can be done in a more focused way in therapy. But that might not be the answer for everybody. And I think if we understand some of the basic tools that we have available to us to at least begin down that road and follow that path, maybe based on your own level of resiliency, your own experiences of trauma, maybe some of this can really have a life-changing experience for you. And if not, or even coupled with seeking therapy or coaching, you can have a significant change. But with that being said, one of the first things I want to emphasize is journaling. I know it sounds kind of hokey to people. You think the idea of sitting down and writing in a notebook about your feelings, you might want to rather maybe stick a needle in your eye. But it doesn't have to be that way. I want to embrace a different way of looking at it. Journaling can be something as simple as taking a walk and feeling grounded with nature, and you're thinking about your thoughts. You're getting an idea of where you sit with this. You're barefoot, you're outside, and you maybe play a voice memo on your phone, and you talk about, who was I back then? What are the things that I remembered? And what were the love lessons that I got? Was I seen? Was I heard when I was hurting? Did I go to anyone for comfort? Who did I depend on? Did I have to turn inward? Was I only able to rely on myself? So maybe now, do I shut down when my partner challenges me? Or did I always seek that approval from my mom and my dad? And so I needed to perform to get that proverbial pat on the head so I would know that I was good. So is now all I do is perform? All I know what to do is to be an overachiever, to work super hard, to constantly be busy. And maybe that's the trauma response that shows up every day. But as you're playing this voice memo about yourself, or you're taking the time to actually journal it and write it down, you can see this in front of you or hear it and listen to yourself and have an understanding about how you might have adapted, which is now maladaptive as an adult. It doesn't serve you now, but at the time it was crucial. When you were young, you learned how to function in that environment that didn't give you everything you needed. So journaling and recording is a really big thing that can make a big shift for you. Another suggestion is what I mentioned earlier. It's this conjunction with being grounded. When you start to stop from this frenetic world and crazy world we live in, you begin to have a routine of self care that nurtures your body, whether it's meditation, whether it's simply being outside, feeling a somatic response in your whole body, your skin to the ground and the earth. When you do things that make you feel like your body is whole, that is so significant as far as how it helps you to gain access to the authentic part of you versus just that part that's always in a hurry, the part that's always in survival mode, the part that is constantly go, go, go. Because if we stop and we slow down, what will you find? Breath work is so important here because then are you going to like what you see? Or will we not even know how to function if we sit still long enough to figure it out? And that stillness is something I want to touch on. Because some people think that if I've had a stressful day, I'm going to come home, I'm going to veg out with Netflix, I'm going to be on TikTok for hours. It's not to say those things aren't fun or great shows to watch, and I could be sucked into the world of TikTok easily too. And it has a place, but it's a momentary place because that's just numbing out. It's not feeling anything, it's not nurturing, it's not connecting with yourself, and it can become a habit that we don't realize what it looks like. So I think it's imperative to mention. And so we have a little sense of awareness about it. Another way is to access some childhood memories. Childhood memories can be so telling, and we can be transformed or taken back to a different place if we allow ourselves to do that. Another way is to access some of those memories. Childhood memories can be so telling, and we can be transformed to a different place if we allow ourselves to go back. A way to get into that mode is to look at old photographs, or maybe to read a book that reminded you of your childhood. Maybe it's to participate in a hobby or an event or something that you recall that your younger self at a younger time did these things. It's almost like taking a reverse time machine, going back to when you were in that place. And that's when you can access some of those thoughts that you might have suppressed, some of those feelings you shoved down. I also really like to encourage talking to somebody who knew you then, someone who can reflect with you about what your life was like. That can also sometimes put you in a different state of recognition and awareness. But all in all, the challenge is just about capturing what you had and what you didn't have, what you needed and didn't get, and making that connection now between those unmet needs, what they look like, and how they present and show up in your adult life. Most of us do not realize that the way we respond and the way we cope almost always relates to attachment wounds that we just haven't healed from yet. So, on that note, I want to leave you with recognizing that, and that's the first step. That is the first bit of work to do if you're really thinking about it. If you feel like I'm a little stuck, I'm not really sure who I am, maybe you're in the throes of an identity crisis, or maybe you just want to do some identity building in your life, or perhaps all of your relationships fall apart. Maybe you are the one that even shows high drama or volatility, and you can't have that stable, secure connection of regulation. And that's back to the idea that if love is chaos, that's what you know. That's what you're attracted to. So let's look at trying to adjust and have a positive adaptation of our life experiences, what we needed then, and what we can give ourselves now and as an adult, and using that wise mind adult part that can guide us into thinking about things with our rational brain, with thought, with purpose, with intent, and that intention can carry us pretty far. So, in conclusion about all this, eventually you can embrace this inner child as a part of an unforgotten you, a part that you didn't know of maybe existed, and one that, with this realization, none of it was your fault. You just survived, you were just coping, and this is the skill we need to celebrate. You really deserve to pat yourself on the back for everything you've done to get to this point. It was all necessary. There's no shame or blame or guilt in this. But you can also see you just don't have to do it anymore. Healing is not an overnight thing, and it's not an automatic thing, and you may have to revisit these things again and again. It may take a little bit of time to look at each part, and it's not something that has to be solved all in one sitting, this trauma, this emotional pain. But I do believe if you do the work, you access your inner child, at some point that inner child will actually thank you for doing the work. Best in rest.